Okay, we'll call the meeting of Virginia Gas and Oil Board to order. Today is June the 20th, 2023. We're located in the Virginia Energy offices in Big Stone Gap. The first item on the agenda is to approve those that's attending remotely. Let's establish a quorum first. Ms. Gilmore, will you poll the board to see if we have a quorum?
Mr. Harris,
Yes, I'm present.
Mr. Ratliff,
Yes.
Mr. Jansen,
Yes.
Mr. Cochran,
Yes.
Okay,
Mr. Prather,
I don't think they're on
and
yet.
Mrs. Quillen.
Well, in case they come on, since they're going to attend remotely, we need a motion to permit Mary Quillen, who desires to participate remotely in said meeting due to temporary or permanent disability or other medical conditions that prevent her from physical attending. She should call in. We need this approved. We need a motion
So moved.
in a second. Second. And all in favor?
Yeah. Yes.
Thank you. And the next one's Mr. Prather, Bruce Prather, desires to participate remotely in said meeting due to his principal residence located more than 60 miles from the location. Thanks on the motion.
So moved.
I'll second. Yeah, all in favor?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Now we'll have the board to introduce themselves.
I'm Bill Harris, a public member.
President Gus Jansen, the public member.
Willie Cochran, Virginia Energy member.
I'm Donnie Ratliff, representing Cole and serve as your chairman. I'd like to remind everyone to silence or turn off your phones as the proceedings are being recorded. Do we have any public comments? Anyone signed up to speak? Seeing none and hearing none, we'll proceed to item number 3 on the docket, a petition from Intervest Operating LLC for pooling unit VCI 530604, docket number VGOB 23-0516-4262. All parties interested, please come forward.
Tim Scott and Larry Reeves for Intervest Operating.
You may proceed, Mr. Scott.
Okay, Ms. Gilmore, you're going to swear Mr. Reeves in.
Mr. Reeves, you swear and affirm that your testimony is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
Mr. Reeves, please state your name, by whom you're employed, and your job description.
Larry Reeves, employed by Intervest Operating as a land agent.
Are you familiar with this application that's now pending before the board?
Yes, I am.
And is it located in the Norcolk Bay gas field? Is that correct?
Yes.
How many acres does this unit contain?
58.7 acres.
And presently, Intervest has a substantial portion of this unit under lease. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
And are we going to dismiss any parties listed on Exhibit B3 today?
No.
And how were these individuals or this party respondent notified of this hearing?
By certified mail with return receipt.
And have we provided proof of mailing to the board?
Yes, we have.
Or do we have any unknown or unlocatable parties in this unit?
No, we do not.
And is there an escrow requirement for this unit?
No.
Is Intervest authorized to transact business in the Commonwealth?
They are.
And is there a blanket bond on file with the department?
Yes, there is.
And if you were able to reach an agreement with the party listed on Exhibit B3, what lease terms would you offer for lease in this area?
$5 per acre per year for a 5-year paid up lease with 1/8 royalty.
Okay, thank you. And do you think this is a reasonable compensation for a lease in this area?
Yes.
And what percentage of the unit does Intervest presently have under lease?
94.35 excuse me, 94.345%.
And that does include acreage in which Intervest is the owner of the minerals. Is that correct?
It does.
What percent of the unit is Intervest seeking to pool today?
5.655%.
And are you also requesting that Intervest be named the operator of this unit?
Yes, we are.
And if the board grants our application today, what would be the address used for making any elections under the order that's entered by the board?
It'd be Intervest Operating LLC, 408 West Main Street, Abingdon, Virginia, 24210. Attention, Kevin Miller, Vice President Land.
Thank you. And should this address be used for all communications with an order entered by the board?
Yes,
Thank you. And are you also familiar with the operational aspects of this unit?
yes, I am.
And what's the proposed depth of this well?
1,875 feet,
And what are the estimated reserves for this unit?
750
MMCF?
MMCF. Yeah, I'm
Yes,
sorry.
thank you. That's all right, thank you. And are you also familiar with the well cost, proposed well cost?
Yes, sir.
What's the estimated dry hole cost for this unit?
$199,056.
And the completed well cost?
$580,809.
And if the board grants our application today, in your opinion, would it be protect relative rights, promote conservation, prevent waste?
Yes.
That's all I have from Mr. Reeves for this.
Any questions from the board? Anything else, Mr. Scott?
That's all I have on this one, Mr. Chairman.
Okay.
I think we have Mr. Fraser and Mrs. Quillen with us.
Okay. Good. The board acts on the motion.
Motion to approve.
I have a second.
I'll second that.
Thank you. Ms. Gilmore, you on the board, please.
Yes.
Mr. Ratliff,
Abstain.
Mr. James,
Yes.
Mr. Cochran,
Yes.
Mrs. Quillen,
yes,
Mr. Prather. Mr. Prather,
The order is approved as presented.
Mr. Chairman, let me just ask a question. I ask this every year. I notice the AFEs are always estimates. Do we ever come back and compare the estimates to the actual? Is there some way of doing that? I know every year we go through this and we approve estimates. Is there some way of ever going back and seeing how close the estimates are to actual?
I believe the only way that ever would happen, Mr. Harris, in my experience with this, is if a person who is being pooled today came forward and wanted to participate in the well, they would have the right to see what the actual costs were. And I think at that time, the division would require that information to be submitted. But as long as nobody's actually participating in the well, I don't think it becomes an issue.
Okay.
Or if it's disputed.
Disputed, yes.
Yes,
That's disputed.
Yes.
In a way, yeah.
yes, sir.
I was just curious because I know we go and usually approve these. I hate to say it this way without question, but I just wonder sometimes if, and I'm not questioning the accuracy, but we just go through and say, oh yeah, this is okay. And I just wonder if anyone ever comes back and says,
Yeah, I think the purpose of the AFE is for that person who wants to participate in the well to have an idea of what their cost would need to be to participate in the well. And that would be trued up at the end when the actual cost actually came in, where the well was drilled up, and then that would all be reconciled at the end
Right.
if they were choosing to participate. But and we have so few people that actually participate, then it's really never been a big issue.
yeah, okay, thank you very much.
We voted on that item, right?
Yes, we did.
Next item on the docket's item 4. It's a petition from Intervest Operating LLC for pulling unit VCI 6000004, docket number VGOB 23-0620-1465. All parties interested, please come forward.
Again, Tim Scott and Larry Reeves for Intervest Operating LLC.
You may proceed, Mr. Scott.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Reeves, again, your name by whom you're employed in your job description.
Larry Reeves, employed by Intervest Operating as a land agent.
And again, this unit is also located in the Norcolba gas field. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
And how many acres does this unit contain?
58.8 acres.
And again, does Intervest have a substantial portion of this unit under lease?
Yes, we do.
And do we have any parties responding that we're going to dismiss from this application today?
No, we do not.
We have unknowns, is that right?
Yes, we do in this one.
And how were those parties notified of this hearing?
By publication in the Bluefield Daily Telegraph.
And what date was that publication?
May 26th. May 26, 2023.
To the board?
Yes.
And is there an escrow requirement for this unit?
No escrow.
And again, Intervest is authorized to transact business in the Commonwealth. Is that correct?
That is correct.
And there is a blanket bond on file with the department?
Yes.
Again, if you were able to locate and negotiate a lease with the parties respondent listed on Exhibit B3, what would be the terms that would be offered?
Excuse me. The terms offered would be $5 per acre per year for a 5-year paid up lease at 1/8 royalty.
Again, you consider that to be reasonable compensation for a lease in this area?
Yes, sir.
And what percentage of the unit does Intervest presently have under lease?
94.29571429%.
And this does include acreage in which Intervest is the mineral owner, is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
And what percentage of the unit are you seeking to pool today?
I'm seeking to pull 5.70428571%.
Thank you. And you're asking the board to pool the unleased parties listed on Exhibit B3
Yes, sir.
and that Intervest be named the operator for this unit. Is that also correct?
Yes.
And if the board grants our application today and an order is entered, what would be the address used for making any elections under an order entered by the board?
Address would be Intervest Operating LLC, 408 West Main Street, Abingdon, Virginia, 24210. Attention, Kevin Miller, Vice President Land.
And would this be the address for any correspondence regarding this order?
Yes, it would.
And are you also familiar with the operational aspects of this unit?
Yes, sir.
What's the proposed depth of this well?
Proposed depth is 2,600 feet.
And what are the estimated reserves for this unit?
Estimated reserves are 950 MMCF.
And are you also familiar with the well cost for this proposed well?
Yes.
What's the estimated dry hole cost?
Dry hole cost is $269,026.
And the completed well cost?
Completed well cost is $723,850.
Thank you. In your opinion, if the board grants our application today, would it promote conservation, prevent waste, and protect correlative rights?
Yes, sir.
That's all I have for Mr. Reeves.
Any questions from the board?
A couple of quick questions. Again, just for clarification, there's no escrow requirement on this unit due to the unknowns. Those will be paid directly to the Treasury Department. Is that correct, Mr. Reeves?
Yes. Yep. That go to the unclaimed property at Treasury.
And the second question, there's an Exhibit L in the application for the showing the mine locations in the vicinity of the proposed well. The seam that those mines are in are not identified. Do you know what seams those mines represent? Coal seams?
I apologize. I don't have the Exhibit L in front of me. I can find out, Mr. Jansen. I just
wanted to, if you could maybe revise that exhibit and identify the coal seams that are associated with those mines.
Sure.
And I'm assuming that those coal seams would not be stimulated as part of this well application.
I would assume not. I would assume that those seams would be denied through the coal owner or lessee.
Right. So if you can provide that revised exhibit, that would be good. Thank you.
Yep, sure.
That's all the questions I had.
Anyone else? Anything else, Mr. Scott?
That's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Board acts on a motion.
Motion to approve?
Thank you, Ms. Quill.
I'll second that.
Any questions? Hearing none, Ms. Gilmore, will you poll the board?
Mr. Harris,
Yes.
Mr. Ratliff,
Abstain.
Mr. Jansen,
Yes.
Mr. Cochran,
Yes.
Mrs. Quillen,
Yes.
Mr. Prather,
That order is approved as presented.
Thank you. Mr. Jansen, we'll have the Exhibit L uploaded and make sure it's there before we submit the order.
Okay, thank you.
The next item on the docket is item number 5, a petition from Pocahontas Gas LLC for the creation of a sealed gob drilling unit and pooling. Unit is BUC 1SGU6, docket numbers VGOB 23-0516-4263. All parties interested, please come forward and introduce yourselves.
Mark Swartz and Kelly Berry.
Ms. Berry needs to be sworn in.
Ms. Berry, you swear and affirm that your testimony is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
You may proceed, Mr. Scott. Mr. Ford.
Thank you. I'd like to just comment a little bit before I get into Kelly's testimony here. This is a proposed sealed gob unit. It's in the Buchanan #1 mine. There are other sealed gob units associated in that mine. This unit is approximately 3,000 acres. And to give the board an idea of what we're dealing with here in terms of sealing this unit and creating the unit, if you could go to your PDF page 12, it has a depiction of the boundaries of the unit, which obviously need to be sealed, but it has a slightly odd shape to it, which just kind of looks like a handle that goes to the west at the south portion of the unit. That's shown on PDF page 12. This PDF page shows the mine works, the mined out panels, the solid coal that remains within the sealed gob area. And it also shows the wells that were drilled into the area under consideration. To put this in context, if you could find your way to PDF page 272, I'm sorry that it's so far away. Let me find that here. Okay, if you go, actually it's, yes, PDF page 272. On that page, you can see the reason why we included the handle, I'll call it. It actually abuts the 2 prior sealed gob units, looks like Buchanan #3 and #4. In the mine. So we've tried to not leave space unaccounted for that people would not be receiving royalties for. So that's the reason for the peculiar shape. And then the last comment that I would like to make, there are some extra exhibits here that you don't normally see when we are pooling a typical Oakwood unit, for example. And what the explanation for that is, most, if not all of our leases require us to pool standard sized units that have been created previously by the board. And whenever we're talking about a large unit like this, we actually have to notice our lessors to give them an opportunity to object to creating this non-standard larger unit. So we have listed and noticed everyone here. We've noticed the people that we have leases from and the people that we're seeking to force pool. The people that we notice we have leases from, we're simply noticing them that we're proposing to create this large unit. We're not seeking to pool their interests, we have them leased. And obviously with regard to respondents that we named in here, which would be in Exhibit B3 that we're seeking to pool, we're joining them as parties for two reasons. One, to create the unit, and then also to force pool their interests in producing the unit. And with that introduction, Kelly, could you give us your name, please?
Kelly Berry,
And who do you work for?
Pocahontas Gas LLC.
Okay, and Pocahontas Gas LLC is the applicant in this hearing docket?
That's correct.
And is Pocahontas Gas seeking to be designated the board's operator in the event that it's approved?
Yes.
And is Pocahontas Gas authorized to do business in the Commonwealth of Virginia?
Yes.
Has it registered with the department, and does it have a blanket bond on file?
Yes.
What did you do to notify your lessors and the respondents that were seeking to pool that we were going to have a meeting today?
We mailed to all known respondents by certified mail with return receipt requested, and we also published notice in the Virginia Mountaineer.
Have you provided the department with proof of mailing?
Yes.
And have you provided the certificate of publication?
Yes.
And what paper was it published in?
The Virginia Mountaineer,
And on what date?
June 8th, 2023.
Okay. Do you want to add any respondents today?
No.
Do we want to dismiss any today?
No.
What is the percentage of the coal-bed methane interests in this unit that you're seeking to pool today?
1.3827%.
Okay, and I think that is 41.7287 acres out of the 3,000 odd acres, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And is there an escrow requirement?
Yes, for 2 tracks with a title conflict. Yes.
Okay, and what percentage of the 100% of the coal-bed methane interest is going to be escrowed?
Let me see. Approximately 0.1%.
Okay, and that it will actually, if we go to, I think it's at page 219. Let's look at that. We have page 219. Can you find that, Kelly?
Yes.
Okay, and at the foot of 219, you've got the acreage in unit conflicting, and what is with the acreage?
1.59 acres of
Okay, and then-
0.0527%.
Okay, and that's going to be escrowed until that conflict is resolved, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, let's go back then to the beginning, more or less the beginning of this PDF. The exact amount of acreage is provided or stated in the application at PDF page 8. And what's the exact acreage?
3,017.94 acres.
Okay, and then you've provided, in addition to the plats that show the boundaries of the proposed unit, you have, as required by the regulations, you've provided a description, point-by-point description in the Virginia State Plane coordinates of the boundaries of the proposed unit, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. And then, in order to allow people to participate, there's a requirement that we provide costs or allocable costs for folks who might want to participate, so they can figure out what their participation cost would be. And I think it's PDF page 271. Let's go to that. Yes. And at page 271, we have two kinds of costs. We've got well costs and we've got panel costs or ceiling costs, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. And what did you do to calculate a allocable well cost?
The allocable well costs were calculated by utilizing actual well costs, because all of the wells that are currently producing or plugged within the boundary, have been drilled, and we have actual costs available. So those costs were calculated by totaling by each panel located within the boundary, the total cost per panel, and then divide that total cost by the number of wells drilled in each panel. And then that brings you to the total average well cost. And then you divide that by the number of panels located within the boundary.
And that's how you came up with the 7,800,000 and some thousand subtotal for the well cost.
Yes.
Okay, and the average well cost, you just testified as to how you did that. Now, with regard to sealing the panels, we've done this before on other units, correct?
That's correct.
Okay, and previously you went back and reviewed some data from our previous estimates with regard to sealing costs. And it's my recollection that Mr. Cooper actually made an inquiry into costs to seal panels quite a while ago, but back in 2014. And at that time, the cost per seal was $50,000. Is that correct?
Yes.
And you went back and looked at that docket and the testimony, correct?
Well, at that time, the board determined that it would not be fair to pass on the total sealing costs to owners who wish to participate, and they voted that half of the total sealing cost could be passed on to the owner who wished to participate.
Okay, and the concept behind that, if you look back at the order or the discussion during the hearing, was that the sealing costs in this context actually benefited the mining company in terms of isolating the panel from the rest of the mine, and also benefited the oil and gas owners or the coal bed methane owners, in that it allowed them to get a product that they could actually put into a pipeline. And that was the concept between the 50%, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. And on this Exhibit M, you have in fact allocated the participation costs per panel, and you've got a list of those costs, correct?
Yes.
Okay. With regard to some of the other exhibits, have you separately listed the respondents that are leased parties? And if so, in what exhibit have
Yes.
you done that?
Leased parties are identified on Exhibit D.
Okay. And then the parties that you're seeking to pool who would have a participation option because you don't have leases from them, what exhibit are they listed on?
Those parties are identified on Exhibit B3.
Okay. And exhibit B is the collective list of everybody you've noticed.
Yes.
And I think the last exhibit that we need to at least mention, exhibit I is a listing of, and exhibit I appears, it's 2 pages and it starts at PDF page 269. That's a list of prior board orders that affect units that are either entirely or partially within this proposed sealed gob unit. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And that gives the department and the board at least a heads up as to what we think are the prior orders that need to be considered when this occurs in terms of paying on a going forward basis, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Is in the event that the board approves this petition, is it your opinion that it would protect the correlative rights of all of the owners of the coal-bed methane within the area of this, within the 3,000 acres, and also prevent waste?
Yes.
And in the event that the board approves this, what would you recommend to the board as reasonable compensation for people who might be deemed to have been leased?
That would be paid $5 per acre per year for a 5-year paid up lease with a 1/8 royalty.
Okay. Let me review my notes here and see if there's anything else. Mr. Chairman, I think that's it.
Any questions from the board? Mr. Jansen?
Yeah, I've got a few. First off, this seal guy unit, what will be the timing of the sealing of this area within the mine? Will that take place over several months period, or is it already taken place, or where are we at in the creation of the unit?
Coronado has informed us that they intend to seal this area late July, early August of this year.
Okay, so at that point in time, you'll continue to produce from the 80-acre units that are established within the seal gob area and pay under those units. And then you'll transition
until
into
sealing is complete.
And so once the sealing is completed, then you will pay under the seal gob unit, and all those other units will basically terminate, except for the partials, correct?
That's correct. That's correct.
Okay. So this question is probably to the staff. Does the staff do any confirmation of the seals to ensure that the unit conforms to the unit that they have proposed here? At some point in time, do they confirm that where their seals are constructed and how the unit is laid out today as proposed?
We have not.
Is that something that you should be doing in theory?
We can do that, yes.
Okay,
With the Division of Mines.
right.
I think
All that has to be approved and in place.
right, sealing and all the others.
So if the seal weren't actually put where they were proposed today, you would have to change the configuration of this unit maybe at some point in time if that happened. Is that correct? Okay. The Exhibit E that identifies the small acreage associated with the conflicting claims there, looks like that's a conflict between VDOT and some airships. Is that correct, Ms. Berry?
Yes,
Do those conflicts have a history all the way back to the original unit that was drilled in 1998? That conflict, does that conflict
Yes,
go all
they
the way
do.
back? So
Yes, it
what's the
does.
procedure to have some of these conflicts be resolved? How does that get initiated by anyone? I know it's a very small percentage. Is that fair to say that nobody's just interested in doing it because it's such a small interest?
No, I do, individually, I do on, a track by track basis, review units, which previously, at the point in time when the unit was pulled and a track identification, was completed, go back and review title work and review to see if any additional documentation has been recorded or any additional review, can determine which owner rightfully owns the oil and gas. I do that on a regular basis.
Okay. So in this case, there's been no change in 25 years. I assume that it's still in conflict. And how would a conflict like that ever get resolved, or will it ever get resolved?
It could be resolved. It could be that litigation is required and a judgment is needed from a court to determine, depending on what causes the conflict. It could be just interpretation of deeds, and how laws that are passed change the interpretation of deeds over time.
Okay. But somebody would have to initiate that, correct? Either one of the two
Yes,
parties would have to initiate that action, and you got unknown airship and Virginia Department of Transportation. So we really only got one party that can probably come forward and do anything ever. So what, this may be a question for the general board here to have an understanding of this. Once, 20 years from now, 50 years from now, when this seal gob unit is finished and we're sitting here with a small amount of money sitting in an escrow account, will that just be us cheated if the conflict is never resolved, or we're just sitting in this escrow forever? Do we have any clue how that works?
Well, actually, this, to the extent that there's been money in escrow in the underlying units, the 80-acre units, I would believe, depending on when these units were pooled, I would assume that money's already been paid over to the treasury, and that the board no longer has an escrow account because the future royalties, if any, are being paid to the treasury. Now, once
not in a case of a conflicting claim. I don't think the board is transferring those monies to the treasury. They're still sitting there. They'll sit there until that's resolved by the two parties. And if they never resolve the issue, then I assume it just sits in escrow for eternity. Is that correct? Unless the board makes some action at some point. I'm not sure how else. I'm just saying it's been 25 years, and do we really expect anything's going to happen in the next 25 years to resolve this? Probably not.
My assumption has been that money in conflict is cheats as well, but I may be wrong. I thought that, if money in conflict.
Ms. Gilmer can speak to that, I believe.
I don't know, as far as I know, that the conflicting owners the interest stay in the escrow account until it's resolved, and then a petition then is brought before the board to disperse.
Okay.
So I guess that's just something the board probably needs to think about on a going forward basis, that should the operator or the board itself take some action to try to have some of these conflicting claims be resolved. And I'm not sure how that should happen, rather than just money sitting in escrow forever. I understand it's probably, in this case, it's such a small amount of money that neither party is probably going to want to go into a litigation But something would have to happen there. I don't even know if these people are aware that it's in there. I don't know if VDOT's aware that they have this conflicting claim, I guess, unless they really understood this process. Anyway, that's just a commentary there
Well,
on
they're
that
all,
part.
right, right. Known owners are were mailed copies of the petition, so the information is available to them and, you know, in
So they
that
can
form.
move. I noticed in this application, you had a lot of applicants or a few applicants, not a lot. You had a handful of applicants who did not have addresses associated with their names. How are those people going to be compensated? How are they getting their compensation paid to them now, either under the existing units or the proposed unit here today? Is that being internally escrowed by Pocahontas Gas, or how does that take place?
For owners with either a pending address or you know, that we have attempted to mail to and have had mail returned from, that is like a bad address, their funds are held in internal suspense or internal escrow until, you know, an accurate address can be identified for them.
Okay.
In addition, there was an amount of deceased owners whose heirs are pending, and documentation is currently being obtained to document the heirs of those deceased individuals.
Okay.
And that internal escrow operates as, you know, the VGOB escrow would, and once 5 years have passed without being able to identify a location for an owner, those funds are escheated to the state.
So you had, again, you touched on just briefly there, you had several that had documentation pending. I guess that's so those are also internal suspenses, just like the unknowns or the
Correct.
addresses where you don't have their address unknown. So, okay.
We are in the process of identifying the heirs.
Okay. So generally, once this sealed GOB unit is established, I think you stated in the facts, you had 314 permitted well locations. Several of those have been plugged at this point. Several of them have the bottom hole plugged.
Right.
You'll continue to produce from a series of those wells, and that all be combined into one unit. And again, like we stated before, the existing units and the tracking on the individual wells will go away at that point. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. The last thing I had, I think, with the cost that you had developed for the sealed GOB unit, you indicated you had several wells you went back and looked at, but you only used a well count of 27 to calculate that cost. Do you think that's just representative? You ended up using 3 wells per panel, but some panels have more than,
yes,
obviously have more than 3 wells. Is that the standard way you do it, with just 3 wells?
in an area of this size with as many wells that are drilled in it, I mean, we couldn't reasonably pass on the entire amount of well costs to an owner who wished to participate. So yes, this is what we have done in the past in areas of this size.
Okay. Just the last question for just have a little bit of understanding what we may expect out of this large unit. Out of the 80-acre units that underlie this unit, did you have any participation from any of the unleased claimants before in any of those units in the past, or all
No.
of those just, okay, that's what I thought. Okay, thank you. That's all the questions I had.
Thank you, Mr. Jensen. Anyone else have questions? Anything further, Mr. Swartz?
No, not at this point.
It's on the motion.
Motion to approve.
Motion to approve.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Mr. Harris. Any other questions? Ms. Gilmer, you poll the board.
Mr. Harris,
Yes.
Mr. Ratliff,
Yes.
Mr. Jansen,
Yes.
Mr. Cochran,
Yes.
and Mrs. Quillen.
Yes.
Thank you. Mr. Schwartz, that's approved as presented, sir.
Thank you, sir.
The board will now receive an update from the division staff. We have an update on anything?
Nothing to update, sir. Do you have anything particular?
And the only thing, since Jody's not here, I can give you an update like on the disbursements. I was just gonna give you an overview of just for the fiscal year 2023. The regular disbursements like the, from House Bill 2058 total $37,658.97. And the treasury for fiscal year 2023 totaled $141,978.81 for a total of $179,637.78. And that, those amounts go through April of this year.
Any questions? Anything further, Ms. Gilmer? We need to approve the May minutes that was provided in the link that was sent to you. We have a motion to approve the minutes as presented.
Motion
Motion to approve?
Thank you. We have a second.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Yes.
Anything further for the good of the order?
Just a question, next month's meeting, we are scheduled for that, is that was it the 19th or the 20th? 18th?
We do have a couple of things.
Okay. You got
Yeah.
something, please?
No, I checked my calendar early, I just wanted to confirm the date. I'm okay. And I should be.
Mr. Cochran, you've been off quiet. You have anything to offer? Yeah. Hearing nothing further on the agenda, I would stand adjourned.
Thank